and thank you for joining us again at Voice of Rohingya Radio, a registered non-profit media broadcast coming to you from the state of Oregon in the United States of America. We act as the media wing of the Arakan Rohingya Union, providing exclusive interviews, reports from inside the border, and the latest news from reputable sources from around the world. We'd like to ask you to take a moment and go to www.vorradio.org for up-to-date news and information concerning this program and how you can get involved. Voice of Rohingya Radio is the only news source of its kind in the English-speaking world. You can learn more about the Rohingya cause by supporting us today, and we'll continue bringing you the latest news in a convenient format and keeping you informed and involved. You can listen to our program each week, Sundays at 7 p.m. Pacific Time, and if you're interested in sponsoring our program, simply log on to our website or send us an email to support@vorradio.org. It is March 8th, 2015. For Voice of Rohingya Radio, I'm your host, Zach Taylor. In our top story tonight, Rohingya people are living in fear in Butte Dong, according to a report coming from the town that is saying Rohingya, particularly in the villages of Fundu Para, Naye Para, and Hansa Para, are worried that they are seeing signs of a looming massacre. At the time of the report, BGP armed forces, including Rakhine extremists, were torturing Rohingya and looting their homes, especially those of people living in the northern part of Butte Dong. Women and children have been arrested by border guard security for inquiry, and our sources say they are being tortured and raped at the BGP post camp. Some people were released after paying bribes, however a large number of people remain in custody, and many men, women, and children have gone into hiding in the nearby forests. The current crisis began when locals at the village of Fundu Para fled as census authorities approached their village. The police asked everyone to report to the local school to be documented, but this created a panic and many people ran to the surrounding hills. The BGP security forces have also surrounded a mosque in a neighboring village and are attempting to arrest people who have taken refuge there, and many worry that those arrested will be killed. As of the time of the report, most of the villagers from the aforementioned villages in Butte Dong are still in hiding without food and shelter, and as of today, their situation remains unknown. In a related story, on Thursday, a senior police officer was shot dead by a junior officer in a coffee shop in Butte Dong after a heated argument over the distribution of money extorted from Rohingya. The senior officer and person in charge of the Butte Dong police station, Captain Tin La, and the junior officer had quarrels before the incident took place. The argument leading to the murder of Tin La began Thursday morning at a local coffee shop, where he insulted the junior officer by beating him severely. The junior officer proceeded to take out his gun and shot Tin La at point-blank range. The senior officer died en route to the hospital. The junior officer has surrendered at the police station. Locals say the victim was a ruthless man who's extorted millions of kyats from Rohingya by arresting them on false allegations and demanding ransoms for the release. In other news, on Tuesday, a 12-year-old girl named Zubaira Khaled was tragically wounded by BGP officer U Kya Ki. She was shot during a census verification process in the town of Ra The Dong. That day, a group of military personnel and BGP ordered Rohingya villagers to come to a local school for a census verification. Many people came there as a group in order to voice their disapproval of being labeled Bengalis instead of their ethnic Rohingya name. After attempting to disperse the crowd, border guard police officer U Kya Ki suddenly opened fire into the crowd without warning, where the 12-year-old girl was shot in the stomach. Though the shooting occurred in the presence of Deputy Commander of the BGP in Ra The Dong, Lieutenant Tha Za, no actions were taken against the shooter. Villagers took the injured girl to a nearby hospital, but she was refused admittance by Rakhine doctors. She was then refused treatment in Butte Dong and Maungda townships. As of today, her fate is still unknown. The Rohingya civil society members of Arakan recently published an appeal to the international community that explained that Rohingyas are a distinct ethnic community that has been living in Arakan for many generations and have made Arakan their ancestral homeland. But they are internationally branded as Bengalis who have recently illegally infiltrated and settled in Arakan, Myanmar. The appeal says Rohingyas have no lineage in Bangladesh and don't know the Bengali language nor hold Bengali cultural festivals. Rohingyas' resemblance to those living in Tangkaf and the Cox's Bazar region is because those inhabitants were once descendants of Rohingyas who were driven out by successive Burmese belligerent forces since 1784. Thousands of Rohingya families have moved into East Bengal for the last centuries, triggered by upheavals in Arakan. The earliest Rohingya exodus took place in 1784 when Arakan Muruk-u Kingdom fell under the conquest of the Burmese king when British forces colonized Arakan in 1824. Many Rohingya families who took refuge in the Cox's Bazar area returned to their homeland of Arakan as soon as peace prevailed. But many Rohingya families remained and settled in southern Bangladesh and have subsequently become citizens there. All governments after Myanmar's independence in 1948 have recognized Rohingyas as citizens of Burma, but the status of genuine citizenship has been withdrawn steadily since 1962, when the democratically elected government of Prime Minister U Nu was overthrown by General Ne Win. The stripping of the nationality status has gathered momentum, and now it has reached its final stage under the current democratic government of President U Thein Sein. No government of Myanmar, however, has ever claimed that Rohingyas were foreigners. Rohingyas have never been issued foreigners' registration cards, but were issued genuine national registration cards according to the 1949 and 1951 citizenship and national registration laws. Subsequently, a nationwide issuance of national registration cards was launched in 1954, in which all Rohingya Muslims were included. As all other indigenous races of Burma, Rohingyas received the same citizenship status, thus Rohingyas enjoyed political, social, and economic rights. Within a span of 50 years, however, they have been rendered stateless in their ancestral homeland. The citizenship status of Rohingyas is now at stake as the existing constitution is being frantically amended, aiming to strip the Rohingyas' right to franchise. The appeal said a conspiracy is being hatched to keep Rohingya on the fray, and steps have already been taken to this end. The prevailing situation in Arakan is precarious for all Rohingyas as measures are being taken to entrench them by formulating new laws and amending the existing ones. Besides electoral laws, racially discriminatory laws which target Rohingya foremost are being discussed in the parliament. Rohingya fears that their days in Arakan are nearing an end. The appeal urged the international community to intervene and give the Rohingya protection as they are currently facing a very grim future. You are listening to Voice of Rohingya Radio. Thanks again for listening to Voice of Rohingya Radio, your source for Rohingya news. We'd like to remind you to visit vorradio.org where you can get involved and show your support. PRI's The World recently caught up with photographer Min Zayar, who often travels to displaced Rohingya Muslim camps in western Myanmar to capture images of daily life. On a recent assignment, he came across a camp in Sitwe and noticed the glow of computers inside one building. Then he heard the people inside shouting at the screens. The photo he snapped of the internet hut stuck with him. A face illuminated by technology with a dramatic expression of someone connecting to family in the outside world. When Min Zayar came back to take more photos in the internet huts, he was hoping to capture images filled with the joy of loved ones seeing each other for the first time in a long while. He encountered some smiles, but also something more serious. Impoverished people desperately trying to work out payment details for traffickers on the other end of the video call, trying to win freedom for the family members. These conversations are very sensitive and intimate, he said in an interview with The World. Sometimes people cry and I would give them a tissue to wipe off the tears. Some woman would be very worried about their families. Min Zayar admits that when he first started the project, he didn't even think about the trafficking problem. He just wanted to photograph the Rohingya women speaking with their husbands working in Malaysia. It was supposed to be positive. Then when I actually spent time in these huts, I realized it was way more than I thought, Min Zayar said. The problems that they are dealing with are much bigger than I thought. It was really an emotional time. During his several days photographing the Rohingya in Burma, he found many would really try and be strong and hold their emotions back. They would try and not to cry in front of their loved ones, Minzayar said. But there's always a breaking point, and they just can't help it and start to cry. On top of all the challenges the Rohingya face, there's also the practical reality that there's no real privacy. Minzayar says you can hear people in the next hut. You can hear people walking past. If neighbors are cooking, the smoke from their meal will drift in. And when the Rohingyas are in the heartbreaking negotiations to free their family members from the clutches of human traffickers, everyone can hear that as well. These little huts are so close together, just a few inches in between one hut and another, Minzayar says. You can hear the voice from the inside of the hut, and you could also hear the voice of people speaking in the next hut. There's no privacy, but all this is happening every day. It can be quite noisy, and people around are quite used to what they are talking about. In other news, Bangladeshi border guards clashed with a group of illegal migrants who had crossed from neighboring Myanmar on Friday, according to a report by Reuters UK, before deporting 136 of them, including women and children. A local commander from the Parliamentary Border Guards Bangladesh unit said the migrants were from Myanmar's Rohingya Muslim community. According to him, at least 300 Rohingya crossed from Myanmar into Bangladesh and were making their way by road to a refugee camp near the town of Cox's Bazar when they were stopped by a BGB checkpoint set up after a tip-off. Some of the migrants fled and were assumed to have taken shelter with local residents, the commander said, while 136 who were captured were sent back to Myanmar. UCA News wrote Friday that more than a month after being evicted from their makeshift camps, tens of thousands of Rohingya Muslims in Cox's Bazar district in southeastern Bangladesh are struggling to make ends meet as promised aid has yet to materialize and housing is non-existent. The majority of the 35,000 unregistered refugees who were forced out of their squalid homes in the Shamlapur fishing village on February 4th have been living rough. A lucky few have taken shelter in nearby schools, while some have moved into their relatives' homes at other informal settlements in the Cox's Bazar area. Khalida Akhtar, 34, a mother of 3, has found shelter at a local school. 15 men and women, including their children, are living here, because we have nowhere to go. Most men rely on day labor and fishing for a living, and some women work as housemaids like me, she said. Khalida is the lone breadwinner for the family. Her husband drowned while trying to travel to Malaysia illegally for work. The refugees had lived in the area since the 1990s, occupying dilapidated houses and relying on fishing for their livelihood. All had fled sectarian violence in their native Rakhine state in Myanmar just across the border. The Bangladesh Prime Minister in November said the government was planning to relocate Rohingya refugees to, quote, a better place from their camps in Cox's Bazar district. Details as to where that better place is have yet to be released. Thanks again for listening to Voice of Rohingya Radio, a weekly news program bringing you up-to-date information about the Rohingya people in Myanmar. You can catch our broadcast every Sunday night at 7 p.m. Pacific Time here in the United States by logging on to vorradio.org, or you can join our page on Facebook to find more information on the program. For Voice of Rohingya Radio, this is Zach Taylor, signing out.